Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Prince Altres, Cabrera, Dios of Philippines Recaneli Mother International Foundation, the voice for global solutions on poverty incorporated, as well as the Project Galileo, our group chairman, Mr. Crutcher. Have a good day, everybody. And today is September 28, 2020. We're going to discuss a lot of things today. So we just need to thank the Almighty God for this opportunity. And I would like to give the speech to our group chairman, Mr. Crutcher. Go ahead, Mr. Crutcher.
Well, thank you, Prince Altres. I wanted to talk today about currency, both what we call fiat currency, which is the bills that are in your wallet, and virtual or digital currency, which are things like the Bitcoin and Ethereum and other digital currencies which you may have heard of. First and foremost, most people have the illusion that fiat currencies such as the euro, US dollar, Chinese yuan are actually backed by something. There's a lot of talk about currency backing, or it's backed, or it's not backed, or this kind of thing. To be honest with you, there's no currency in the world that I'm aware of that is actually backed by anything. Okay, so governments issue currency along certain guidelines. Their treasury departments will be in touch with the printers of money. They'll order money, much like you'll order food from Amazon to deliver a pizza. The governments will basically order money from private contractors, who are then given a special, essentially, license to print money, as we say, a license to print money. So, interestingly, we live in a world today where maybe something like between 4 and 6% of the currency in your wallet is probably counterfeit. There's a lot of counterfeit bills in circulation, and coins as well, and so much so that it's even reached those types of percentages. So when you make a deposit of cash in the bank, they might hand you back some of the bills, or take them out and say, "I'm sorry, this is counterfeit, we're going to destroy it." Or otherwise, it could be that if you present quite a few of these, that they'll call the police and and ask them to escort you from the bank. So we live in a world where counterfeit currency is a reality, and in the case of the U.S. dollar, there's really only so much policing that the Treasury can do, or the U.S. government. So they just everybody sort of generally accepts that there's this large circulation of counterfeit bills, which is very shocking to me, because as an end user and a consumer, that disturbs me greatly. Okay, because I can see between 4 and 6% of my cash position becoming worthless when I've done nothing wrong is just a fact of actual circulation and the market. Now, the most widely circulated cash currency in the world, this is called fiat currency. Fiat meaning it's just ordered to be printed, no backing. That's what fiat means. Okay, right. So we live in a world of fiat currencies, and for U.S. dollars, for instance, how much would you guess, Prince Altres, is in circulation outside of the United States?
I guess a trillion of dollars.
Well, it seems like a lot.
Yes.
There's an actual percentage, 60% of all U.S. dollars which are printed are in foreign countries, non-U.S. countries. A good example is El Salvador. El Salvador, a small Central American country, decided to adopt the U.S. dollar as their national currency.
Oh, cool.
Now, isn't this interesting?
Very interesting.
It sort of paves the way for a global currency if you accept the U.S. dollar in this way.
Yes.
But the fact is that we didn't have a vote in we live in a so-called democratic country in the United States. We didn't have a vote that El Salvador could use our money.
Oh.
Right? Because our money really has to do more with the United States economy, classically. Okay. That really was the meaning of our money. And then you had the era under Richard Nixon of the petrodollar, where all petroleum transactions, all petroleum itself, gold, and major commodities would be priced in US dollars and had to be essentially paid for in US dollars. And this fact has supported the US dollar even in recent times, even though it's essentially backed by nothing, or rather than nothing. I should say fiat currencies are backed by human psychology.
All right.
That's a very interesting backing, meaning that if I believe that that such and such a bill is worth $1 or $100, that belief, if it's generally held by millions of people, is good enough to assign a value to that piece of paper. Now, interestingly, the background of our organization, Project Galileo Group, includes Mr. Cleante Vitali, whose company got the contract to print the Ukrainian currency after the breakup of the Soviet Union.
Okay.
He came up with the name grivna because he had seen the grivna, they're sort of like ingots of silver and other metals in the National Museum in Kiev. And so that's a currency for 50 million people. And he established the largest currency printing factory in the world outside of Kiev.
Wow.
So our group has experience in creating fiat currencies. So that is a good background for what I'm going to explain next, and in our subsequent part of our discussion. But essentially, whether it's the backing of the grivna or any other currencies, what is the integrity of a currency with so much counterfeit currency in the world? It has to do with security features that can be incorporated into the printing of bills. You see these little metal strips in euros, for instance, which is a metal strip, and watermarks and other special security features. Some bills can have as many as 20. So that you absolutely can be reassured that it's not counterfeit. There's another part about physical bills, which is they can be broken, ripped, burned, destroyed.
A lot of reasons.
Well, physical cash is at risk of just sort of human existence and human life. So that in large fires in homes, often quite a bit of cash is burned in this way.
All right.
And or in businesses and buildings that catch fire. There's little children who think that maybe if they tear a bill in half that they'll have double the money or something like this. And so there's all of this, but bottom line, maybe about 4% of all bills are actually that let's say that are in your wallet have some kind of damage to them.
Oh, all right.
They could be somebody that has drawn a mustache on George Washington, or it can be more serious where there's been some kind of chemical bleaching or something else. So there's broken bills and damaged bills, and those actually the banks have the right to declare them to have no value, and to collect them from you and send them back to the Treasury, who destroys them. So there's it's not like that you have.
But they're not gonna replace that, the bank, or how does it work for them? Say they're just like claiming, oh, I need to have that my money back. So how does it go?
Well, in this case, as far as the U.S. Treasury goes, the exchange of broken bills for new bills is something of a mystery. And depends on the country that you're in. But essentially, it costs about $30,000 US plus or minus to print 100 million worth of $100 bills. That is on a pallet and it weighs 1 metric ton. So you can see that the actual price for printing money is extremely minimal. We obviously assign a huge value to it within our societies. Okay, so fiat currencies have problems being able to be damaged, and then also being duplicated by criminals and sometimes criminal governments. So currency is at risk. Fiat currency.
Fiat. How do you spell that, fiat? Like,
Just like the automobile.
okay.
Fiat. Fiat
just
currency.
to clarify, all right?
It's not Italian though. It's universal.
All right.
Okay. All right. So anyway, that's just a little bit of background and history of printing money, and who justifies the printing of money, who controls the money supply. These are great mysteries that actual economists cannot answer to, because it's cloaked in a veil of secrecy.
Yes.
And what is a new country comes into existence. Okay, they need a new currency. What is the backing of that currency? How much can be printed and why? And, these are truly questions that even I'm a graduate of Harvard University. Even the people at my old university cannot really teach to their students, because if they knew the information, it would be too confidential. So they rely on these old money supply concepts, but truly, who controls the supply of money? Often the actual printers. I'm just giving a hint.
Yes. Yeah, just kindly give us the hint.
Right. Often the people who print money are some of the most powerful.
Oh, okay.
And it's there's an old saying, if you want to investigate something, follow the money. And I say, follow the printing ink.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much the step on how to know.
Right. Yeah. There's an actual traceability to this. So it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, now let's talk about digital currencies.
All right. What is that?
And so we can say digital or virtual.
Virtual.
And the funny thing about the word virtual is that in most countries like Italy, in Europe, for instance, virtuale is the word virtual, and it just means fake. So it's when you say virtual currency, in the minds of some people, it means currency that's just fake, and it's a fraud.
It's not real.
And it's not real, and it's no value. Okay, so this is why sometimes it's better to say digital.
Digital. So we're not going to use the virtual, because a lot of people might think that it's not real.
That's right. That's right.
That's a crazy way of thinking.
It's funny, but it's all semantics, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about digital currency. In 2008, which was the founding of Project Galileo, that's the year of our founding, and also I think, Prince, it's when you joined the foundation.
Yes.
Was 2008.
Yes.
So it was kind of a big year in a lot of ways, and 2008 was the birth of cryptocurrency with the Bitcoin.
All right.
Okay, so that is a very interesting year in history.
So it sounds educational. Yeah.
Well, it was the year of the global financial crisis.
Okay.
And when many banks and financial institutions went bankrupt, and interestingly, the Bitcoin emerged as an alternative to the traditional banking system or cross-border payments, or ability to transfer money. A lot of people were frustrated with the SWIFT system. If you've ever sent a SWIFT wire, it is anything but SWIFT. It is slow, and it can even be returned for various reasons, or even just kind of disappear. I've had SWIFTs actually disappear. So in this case, informational SWIFTs, but it was confirmed by Wells Fargo Bank and not confirmed on the other side.
Oh my gosh.
So the SWIFT system is something that people don't fundamentally trust. And they also feel that their information from the SWIFT system is being shared with different governments, such as the United States.
So there's no privacy anymore.
No. SWIFTs go through Brussels, and Brussels is the seat of the European Union and the ECB, and so all of this watchdog activity is going on, even if you're sending money from a country that is outside of the U.S., like the British Virgin Islands or some territory or country in the Caribbean. You're going to send money to Republic of Georgia, for instance, and if you do that, then there's this long trail through Brussels of the SWIFT system. So a lot of people don't trust that, and and it's slow. They wanted instantaneous transfers, because this is what modern day business demands.
Okay.
Time is money.
That makes sense.
Everyone has always said time is money.
Exactly.
So why not create an electronic system, since we're in the computer age and internet age,
All right.
where money can be transferred at the speed of light, and essentially there's no holding period or waiting period or in whatever period. So this is part of why currency was digital currency was created.
All right.
Another was confidentiality.
Confidentiality. What is that like?
Well, confidentiality is a right which is disputed by many governments.
Is still also a currency?
Well, we're talking about digital currency is maybe a lot more confidential than
right.
fiat currency.
Okay.
Because bitcoins, for instance, are very hard to trace beyond maybe one transaction.
Yes.
But what was the origin of that money? Once it was converted into bitcoins, where did that money come from?
Yes.
And all of the banks and financial institutions and governments are trying to trace the origin of money, sometimes for very good reasons. They're trying to track down criminals or corrupt politicians or people that have used or abused financial systems, taken bribes or gathered money in the wrong way and converted them into bitcoins or other digital currency. So the Bitcoin has a double reputation. On the one hand, it's one of the most marvelous innovations of the last 100 years.
Okay.
And being a fully digital currency that is not able to be duplicated, unlike fiat currency.
Yeah, it
no
can be
duplication. So that's a real innovation right there. That gives more integrity to the value of a Bitcoin than it does to the value of a US dollar. And you may notice as well that Bitcoins have gone up tremendously in price over the years, reflecting their desirability, the desire of people to own them, and a limited supply. There's a fixed supply of them, therefore there's a lot of demand, and that drives up the price. Interestingly though, the Bitcoin, after it was invented by IT people. Okay. It was not invented by financial people or economists or people involved in foundations and social welfare. So it's kind of like a cool app that has been created by very savvy digital experts.
All right.
However, not thinking a lot about what would be the social implications of this currency, either when it came to criminality, and of course the foundation is involved in upholding the law.
Yes, exactly.
And elimination of criminality.
It's like a constitutional rescue. Yes.
Indeed. And these are principles as well that also strike true in every other country, not just the Philippines, but also these principles are applicable in many other places in the world. So to eliminate criminality, you have to have some kind of good interface with digital currency, where in the case of wrongdoing, that you can actually track down terrorists and other people who are destroying society, or really kind of enemies of society, and responsible for killing people and hurting economies and doing all the other things they do. So anyway, the Bitcoin, how does it behave as an instrument? We'll just call it a financial instrument, as another word for both fiat currencies and digital currencies. They're financial instruments. Now, both of them are issued based on zero. In other words, there's no backing to a US dollar, there's no backing to a Bitcoin.
Okay.
So you can't say that, the US dollar has backing and the Bitcoin has no backing. That's actually not true.
All right.
And there's no control over the issuance of US dollars, whereas Bitcoins are much more limited in their issuance as far as quantity. So that also makes the Bitcoin a superior investment currency than the US dollar. But anyway, traceability. We've criticized the Bitcoin a little for its, it can hide the lack of origin of money after that the money is exchanged for the Bitcoins, and then they're, sent around the world, and then what was the origin? But to be honest, US dollars in cash are much the same as this, or even worse, because there's not even one single electronic record of their transfer. U.S. cash can just be handed in a bag to a politician, or something like this. Those types of transactions, there's no record. There's absolutely no traceability, unless it's unless it's a government operation where they put little magic powder on the bills, and well, that's a different topic. In general, U.S. dollars are not traceable, as far as being parts of transactions. So let's look at what is a blockchain, and what is people talk about blockchains and they talk about Bitcoin in the same sentence, or digital currencies. All right. It took me a long time. I'm a layman. I'm a finance person, so I'm not an IT guy. It took me a long time to understand and learn what is a blockchain. And it comes down to that it's a security system. All right.
Okay.
And what type of security system? It's a security system where it's a link of many different so-called blocks. What are blocks? It sounds like it's a physical structure, almost, of like a child plays with blocks. No. It's your computer. It's the computer of the next guy. It's the computer of a business. It's somebody's laptop over here. It's quite a variety of computers, which are essentially the blocks. And then they communicate with each other over the internet, and they verify with each other each transaction. And because of the sheer number of blocks, or you could say the more blocks you have, the more secure each transaction becomes.
Okay.
Because you might be able to manipulate one of the blocks, but you can't manipulate all of them. Mm-hmm. And the blocks themselves recognize which block is being hacked or dysfunctional, and that block can be excluded from the system. So it's a very interesting security system, and it was actually developed by NASA,
NASA,
a long time ago, because of the concern for foreign governments intruding into U.S. computer systems. And so this method of verification by multiple computers is a very, very interesting system.
Yes.
And also it formed a kind of interesting, at least theoretically, a democracy, because the individual owners of these blocks, once you become registered, then basically you're part of a democracy that can vote on different types of changes or additions of that system, in many cases. So, all right, the blockchain just means security system.
Yeah.
Involving multiple computers, which you can't see physically in one place, and actually many of them are in secret places, so that governments can't intrude, corporations can't intrude, or very smart 14-year-old teenagers can't intrude. That's the whole idea behind the blockchain, or why it's so attractive. Okay, but enter the age of the quantum computer.
Quantum computer.
All right, the quantum computer can do transactions or can do calculations so fast that it can actually hack almost every single device on Earth.
Okay.
Meaning it can hack your cell phone, it can hack your laptop, or even your Cray computer. Or if there's a blockchain, theoretically, the blocks can all be hacked by a quantum computer.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that are very, very worried about now, digital security, your credit card numbers, and all the things that you store in a cloud, for instance. A quantum computer can just pierce right through that. Okay, so when will these things be active? There's some people that theorize that they already are active. Others which say, give it a couple years and there's going to be quantum computers. They're hard to own and very expensive because they require a tremendous amount of cooling.
Okay.
And this is a huge expense, the air conditioning of quantum computers.
Okay.
Only really governments or multi-billionaires could afford to own such a thing.
Wow.
But
it might be expensive.
Yes.
Maybe a really, really one.
But imagine though that somebody who is a sociopath, dictator, or billionaire decides that that they're basically going to hack the entire financial system, steal all the money. Using a quantum computer, if that computer existed today, they could do that. So the question is, how can we protect ourselves if a blockchain isn't good enough to secure our private information and transaction information and everything else I want to have kept safe? What can we do? Is there such a thing as a secure enclave, as it's called, where your personal data and information can be kept safe from hacking, if you're a business or if you're an individual? Yes, there are technologists in the world, and Project Galileo is very privileged to have met some of them, who have systems that combine both hardware and software that can thwart hacking by this kind of quantum computer, and we can avoid this threat.
It's a great news.
It really is for the consumer. So through Project Galileo and working in conjunction with the foundation, we want to introduce this technology in the Philippines and also throughout the rest of the world. It's highly proprietary. There's only very few people that are at that level as developers to create such technology. So we're very excited about it. And we know that Project Galileo, starting in 2014, I became interested in cryptocurrencies because we were going to create an economy known as a City of Science. And the City of Science has 100,000 people, but it's a very diverse economy with many different areas. So we were interested in creating a currency for use inside of our cities, and then eventually we came up with the idea of the virtual City of Science, maybe with millions of end users. And so this ecosystem or digital environment between a virtual city, we'll call it a digital city. Exactly. The digital city and the terrestrial cities, 100,000 people each. This very special enclave represents a huge economy in and of itself. So that actually will have more utility than the Bitcoin. Utility just means usefulness or ability to transact in multiple types of transactions.
When you say cryptocurrency is also a digital currency, is that the same pattern of?
Yes, it's synonymous in this case.
All right, synonymous for that.
So we were thinking about, all right, we want to create. And remember, we have actual experience printing a fiat currency, in this case for the Ukraine. So how can we create something that is a currency versus that it's just a commodity or something else? I consider the Bitcoins to be like pork bellies. They are a commodity. How do I know this? Because Project Galileo lost $10,000 in Bitcoins. How did that happen? We had ordered a sale of Bitcoins through our gateway, and a payment gateway, and basically it took 2 days to clear. During that 2 days was the Bitcoin crash.
Goodness.
So right away, from $20,000 down to $6,000 or $10,000, I forget, big crash. And we lost that money, not because we were bad speculators. We were just waiting for the clearance of our transaction.
Oh my gosh.
So is that really fair to the end user and to the public when you're expecting that you're working with an alternate currency?
So it's like you're gambling or something like that.
It almost is. And the price of Bitcoins, if you look at their trading history, there's a graph and there's these little zigzags. That graph is the same as gold futures.
Okay.
So if you compare those two graphs over time, you'll see that there's incredible similarities. So what does that mean? It means people are buying Bitcoins as a hedge against bad times or potential inflation or other things, where the US dollar is going to lose value. They're going to purchase Bitcoins and also probably gold. But in the same way.
Yeah, a lot of people actually don't really understand what is the actual meaning of the digital currency, the cryptocurrency, and this kind of, like the example is the Bitcoin. So how does it correlates with the Project Galileo to end up this kind of like bad thing that is going to happen for that kind of event.
Right. Well, this is called volatility. And when you talk about a currency, the joke was that I heard Chinese entrepreneurs were going to establish a Bitcoin city in Malaysia and use the Bitcoin for buying everything and selling everything. So whether it's hiring a lawyer or buying a cup of coffee or taking a taxi, you're going to use Bitcoins. The problem being that if you convert this all back to US dollars, for instance, then it could be that one day you're buying a cup of coffee for $2, and then the next day you're buying the cup of coffee for $5 or $10. And that's going to drive, especially teenagers and young people, that's going to drive them crazy.
Exactly.
That's an unacceptable economic device. So I looked at this problem and I thought, the minute that I lost that $10,000 in just waiting for clearance, I thought to myself, we can design a better digital currency.
Okay.
So that's where the GMU was born.
GMU.
Galileo Monetary Unit.
Okay.
The GMU. So we decided to initially price this at €1 a piece. And
so we're talking about euro now, not a dollar, US dollar.
Right, euros as a base.
Okay.
And so that's just for the sake of pricing and for the sake of sort of understanding by the general public about what is the value of it. And then we would use this for every single transaction of the purchase and sale of all goods and all services inside the cities of science of Project Galileo. So this is similar to Akon City.
Okay.
Akon City is this very interesting city in Senegal, Africa. And the rap star, who's named Akon, created this coin, a digital currency called the A-coin. The A-coin is the exclusive currency of Akon City, just in the same way that the GMU would be the exclusive currency of the terrestrial cities of science in the Philippines and internationally. Now, it's very interesting. There are many very rich cryptocurrency billionaires and centimillionaires who are very young. They could be in their 20s, they could be in their 30s, and with all the money they've made, they like to go to things like the Burning Man event in the desert and in the United States and dance around the fire and pretend that they're kind of bohemian, whereas they're actually anything but bohemian. Okay, they're the new oligarchs. Okay,
all right.
And so they talk and give a lot of lip service regarding the social benefit that cryptocurrency should really give, baby. Okay, and the joke of this is that between having their driver polish their Rolls Royce and deciding what kind of caviar to order at the restaurants in Beverly Hills, they really haven't come up with a way to benefit the people with cryptocurrency. Okay, so that to me is kind of an embarrassment. However, in our design for cryptocurrency, it's different, and let me explain that.
Sure.
Now, part of the goals of the foundation are to end poverty and joblessness. And so what we can do in a city of science, let's say there's 100,000 people. Many of them are workers, there's janitors, there's drivers, there's people that fill every position, and so-called blue collar and so-called white collar, etc. And in such a city, if the wage is paid in a currency such as the GMU, then if the GMU becomes a popular currency, and in the event that the GMU should go from €1 to some higher value, and this is theoretical and hypothetical, then even the janitor or people that occupy essentially lower paying positions, right away their salary has been doubled or increased, or there's all kinds of possibilities. So in that event, then they end up with a superior economic position than if they were just being paid pesos or US dollars, for instance.
Okay.
And this phenomenon is common in the cryptocurrency world, whereby at least in the initial years or time period of a currency that becomes popular, that there's some kind of rise in value. Now, when you market a cryptocurrency, it's very important to explain to people that they mustn't buy this for the expectation of financial gain.
Okay.
That's a real no-no. And we certainly don't want to market our currency with those words or concepts. The fact is that we've tried to invent something to the best of our ability that acts like a currency instead of a commodity, where there are some controls in place. If somebody wants to do a pump and dump of our GMU, because we require all subscribers to them to have their GMUs deposited in virtual safes, we know who owns what. And remember, before also we were talking about criminality in cryptocurrencies and lack of transparency. Well, the GMUs have serial numbers. And because they have serial numbers, they're entirely traceable. We know exactly how many of them someone has, how many bills, in what virtual safe, and then or digital safe. And then we also understand that if a agency comes to us, like the NBI in the Philippines, and says, Project Galileo, we noticed that this person who is part of a terrorist organization has converted money into GMUs, and we can't see that activity. Would you please show us that activity? If they presented a warrant or other documentation that convinced us of the risk of that person, then we would cooperate with authorities, because we want a clean system ourselves.
A legal way.
That's right. And confidentiality is important when it comes to individual human rights, I'll say. The right to confidentiality of information or even of your assets should be something that involves privacy.
Is this also part of the financial technology that we have discussed, the episode 1 or 2? Because this is kind of like a lot of people are trying to understand the way how this financial technology will really change their lives. So this is some sort of like an understanding for me, and but the people around, the people who are going to watch us or someday gonna understand what is this in connectivity of the so-called fintech. Because a lot of people, what is fintech? It's like, what is that? It's like just, I don't know, a new baby, or like just a born one just in this 21st century. So kindly explain deeper, because in a very linguistic words of saying it, I know a lot of people will just, change our lives is just, that's all we want. They don't really know what is the basis or what is the process of how they can change their lives, very much in this kind of poverty that we are experiencing worldwide, especially in this pandemic period.
Right. Well, fintech is something that has social benefits for instance, in Africa. One of Harry Fitzherbert, who is one of our officers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean.
Okay.
He was involved in the development of M-Pesa, which is a payment system using your cell phone. So basically, you use your cell phone, you're in an African village, and you can buy things with it. And because usually very poor people don't have bank accounts, they don't have any way to store their money. So the M-Pesa system allowed them to store their African currency inside their cell phone. It needed to be a smartphone, but essentially the price of smartphones is coming down and down eventually.
But I think we do not have that one here in the Philippines yet.
No, but there are things like PayMaya.
Okay.
And PayMaya is actually a fintech company.
All right.
And they facilitate payments So if you have a PayMaya account, which is entirely digital, it doesn't exist in a bank branch or anything like that. It's just, you could say in the air, okay?
Okay.
But the PayMaya system has their own security measures.
Okay.
And it's not a blockchain as far as I know, but they have other centralized security. So they secure your deposits into their system, and then you can use your phone to buy things in 7-Eleven and anywhere else you go that accepts PayMaya, which is quite a lot of the Philippines by now. So that's a good example of fintech helping poor people who can't afford to have a bank account.
So that is also the GMU becomes a fintech of this our project Galileo. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
The GMU is part of our ecosystem, and it's based upon financial innovations, but serial numbers mean that GMUs are traceable.
All right.
But there's a big difference between being traceable instantaneously to governments versus being privately traceable, and that we reveal that information only in the case where there's evidence that somebody is a bad player.
All right.
Okay?
I
Because
understand.
when you look at something like the Libra of Mark Zuckerberg, you don't know who he's selling your information to. If you subscribe and they're not for sale yet, but if you end up as a subscriber for the Libra at some point based on, because you like Facebook or whatever the reason is, then what will happen is that unfortunately he has a track record of collecting all the data, and now he's got your passport and a lot more data than he had before when he just had your Facebook info.
Exactly.
Now here's your passport and
He's collecting
and so on.
everything.
And so now he can make even more money selling that private data to third parties without your permission and without even asking.
So it becomes illegal.
It's a matter of choice now because the laws don't protect consumers in the digital world.
Oh, I see.
Or not as strongly as they should, is what I should say. So our mandate as Project Galileo is to protect our end users.
Yes.
To do this, we have to guarantee to them, and this would be essentially, when you look at a digital contract and you press I agree, okay?
Yes.
What you're agreeing to, and what we are agreeing to with you, is that we will protect your data to the best of our ability and our security systems. It will not be for sale to other parties.
All right.
And okay, but let's say that the Rand Corporation comes to Project Galileo and they say, well, we're interested in the demographics of the City of Science. We would like to pay you per subscriber X amount of money to get that information.
Okay.
In my view, although, that's an unusual situation, but it could happen. So we'll say, all right, why don't we email our subscribers and end users and say to them, you know what, Rand Corporation has offered us $10 a person for this information, and if you agree, we'll split it with you 50-50. In other words, you get $5, we get $5.
So they have a share now.
To me, that is a moral transaction proposal. And somebody can say yes, or somebody can say no. If they say no, then their data will remain exactly where it is.
Okay.
If they say yes, then they will know which of their data would be transferred to the other party. And then, of course, in our system, they would be paid in GMUs.
Exactly.
So the GMUs would go into their virtual safes, which we'll explain at another time. So we have a digital ecosystem, the goal of which is to preserve the integrity of information, that there's no duplicate printing of currency or counterfeiting of our currency, that also transactions are private unless somebody is very clearly conducting illegal activity, in which case hopefully we're the first to know and we'll freeze the account of the person.
All right.
When we see something really ugly, we're not going to stand by and just say, oh, we'll just look the other way. No, we will not look the other way.
How about the legality of that particular GMU when it comes to the Philippine government? So how are we going to participate with that? So
Well,
a lot of people
at this
will.
time, there have been governments such as India and China which have outlawed transactions in cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And except for their own. China's developing their own government-sponsored digital yuan. That's
Okay.
that's another whole
So
topic.
there's another one.
But that shows you that governments recognize the value of cryptocurrencies for transactions. But in China's case, the central government is going to record all of that information and be even a big brother than they were before. So I wouldn't be too thrilled about it if I was a Chinese person. But if we look at the Philippines at this time is working on legislation having to do with cryptocurrencies, but it's not yet published.
It's not yet.
So it's kind of on the way, and we're of course interested to know. But at this present time, and under the present administration, cryptocurrencies are not regulated.
All right.
So it's very different when you say, let's say somebody, there's been this group that pretended that they could trade Bitcoins.
Yes.
And it's not Bitcoin, but it's Bitcoin traders who said, oh, give us your money and we're so good at trading, we're going to make all this money at Bitcoin and pay you, 10 times or more what you put in, you're going to get back. And those people were a Ponzi scheme.
Oh.
And this is very sad because it gives cryptocurrency in the Philippines kind of a bad name when actually cryptocurrency is the future.
Yes.
Whether it's the future of fiat currencies to convert, like in the case of China, into a digital currency. The Fed is studying right now the conversion of the U.S. dollar into, to have essentially a digital U.S. dollar. That's something they're spending money on.
It sounds like it is something like an investment for the legality here. Once we actually agreed to establish that cryptocurrency for GMU or for their financial technology. So I think that arises the investment permit for the Securities and Exchange Commission for the Philippine government. I think that falls to it.
Right. This is when it comes to selling a cryptocurrency.
Okay.
Selling currencies in the selling digital currencies in the United States has been regulated.
All right.
You need to be licensed and at the state level in order to be able to make those sales. But in most jurisdictions in the world, no, there's not a license.
All right.
And you can buy and sell and trade and be a salesman, and you're not regulated. In the Philippines, it would be the Philippine SEC that would generate legislation about the qualifications of people who would sell any digital currency.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens in the future. For now, a lot essentially just depends on the integrity of our system to be introduced to the global public, if we can say, and that we observe the law in each country, in each jurisdiction, where any GMU would be sold. There will be people who want to buy GMUs by establishing offshore companies and things that make it very difficult, to always to observe the correct format. But we'll do our best because we collect passports. You can't own a GMU without submitting your passport or national ID of some form.
So in order for us to launch this fintech of ours, pretty much we really have to undergo a lot of legal ways, performing, so that people here in the Philippines are pretty much in good shape of like thinking or seeing us in a very legal form of people, not actually disrupting all the negative ones, but it's just the positivity of being optimistic for today and also in the future.
Right. Well, as long as the Philippines accepts cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency transactions, it's a gateway to the future, the economic future.
Okay.
And also, cryptocurrencies like the GMU can be used for social benefit.
All right.
Because we've designed it that way. It's our program to do so. We're not interested in the idea of making money from Project Galileo or from any of our innovations. The idea is to develop society and protect the environment. So if we can use our cryptocurrency or digital currency to help achieve those goals, that's what we're working to achieve with the GMU.
Yes. How does it connect for this fintech, for their standard of living, deeply feeling the society right now in the Philippines? Like is there any way for our Filipino people who are watching or who's going to see the video that we have this episode 3? So how does it actually connects as well?
Right. As far as the public is concerned, there's a number of advantages to these payments. And there's a lot of overseas foreign workers in the Philippines. And they might find that it's a lot cheaper to use our financial ecosystem to transfer value. And currency is a unit of value. So if they transfer GMUs across a border, that's instantaneous.
Okay.
And so the goal is to interface our currency with other fiat currencies. So if they're in Dubai, they can actually go to a machine and take out dirhams based upon their holdings in the GMU.
Okay.
And that's an instantaneous thing. It's not going to take 2 days to clear and the price volatility. None of that. So our goal is to create a real value for people in end users. And then we protect the end users from pump and dump schemes and other artificial volatility created by speculators.
So this one, how long does it take for us to launch this, just for instance? Because I think the Filipino people are really waiting for them to be saved from this so-called poverty. Now they're experiencing, especially in this pandemic period. And even our President Duterte is really trying to, find a way or solution where he is always praying to the Almighty God to give him the strength. And as well as like our NGO, like this foundation, Philippines Recaneli Mother International Foundation, the Voice for Global Solutions on Poverty Incorporated, is also willing to find a way how to solve this kind of problem in the Philippines. Especially we are accredited by the Police Community Affairs and Development Group, and headed by our director, our actually very good Police Brigadier General Joselito mentioned Daniel, and also would like us to perform in this so-called like willingness to help the people of the Philippines with regards to ending the poverty. So the time frame, what do you think about how we are going to perform in that kind of scale?
Well, I think that it takes about actually now more like 6 months, before it was about a year, to release a cryptocurrency.
6 months.
And we're looking now at groups internationally who are bidding on this service to help us to program the GMU. And once the GMU is up and trading, as we say, at first it will just be an exchange inside of our cities of science, and then at some point we'll interface more broadly with overseas currencies and even the national currency of the Philippines, the peso.
All right.
So it's in stages. So really not that far away. Maybe within the next year, that there quite a lot of people will know about the GMU and they might hold some of it.
All right.
The important thing is that the Bitcoin, something like 90% of it, and it's very hard to exactly know because of the opaque nature of the Bitcoin. But there's something like 9 oligarchs who own the majority of it, and about 90% of it. Well, guess who controls the price at that point? And so people think that the Bitcoin is something that where the market is set by the public.
Yes.
And it's not. It's not set by the public. In the case of the GMU, we want it to be very widely distributed.
Okay.
And if we begin, with the first city of science in the Philippines, then that will be the first distribution, essentially, of this currency for use in the city of science.
So it's going to be like a worldwide thing as well. And this is we have also the project, as we all know, the impossible project that a lot of people tends to see, because it's a prophetic revelation where their spirituality kicks in. That's why a lot of people there's so much pain in the past. Oh well, the past is already there, and we already fought for that. And in the present or in the future, that's all I actually requesting everyone, just to see forward, to look forward, to move on, because in the past it's really a lot of people are trying to put us down, but with God's grace and God's help, everything is actually flowing to places that they will never win. They will never defeat us when it comes to like a good mission, the vision, the purposes. So the Avenue Square for All Nations is pretty much, this is the primary project of this foundation, which is like $20 trillion in like the project price or to build this. So it's like, wow, how can you get the 20 trillion pesos pesos for that project to be built in here in actually in the Philippines, in Zambales, Philippines, like 5 towns comprising is an ancestral domain. So that's kind of like, how are you going to perform that? So do you have an idea for this to actually correlate the Project Galileo and our foundation's primary project, so that the people will pretty much be alive and like that, try to be motivated and be inspired? Because I think there's so much information be given in the past that were very tremendous and very bad, but today, at present, and to be in the future, will be a great help to them. And
Right. Well, Avenue Square is a city,
Yes.
and it's
the majestic paradise in the Far East.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
that concept interested us very much.
Oh, thank
as
you
far
very
as
much.
Project Galileo, because
All right.
we saw that as, first of all, this area of Zambales had
Yes.
long been a target of our management as
Okay.
to develop a city of science. We were looking at Subic Bay, for instance,
Oh,
which
okay.
is very nearby to
Yeah.
to the
SBMA.
to your site, the designated site for
Excuse
this
me.
marvelous development.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things is that finance is one of the areas of expertise of our group.
All right.
And so in joining hands, as we've done, we're going to share our resources, which include investment resources.
Okay.
It includes sovereign funds, and it includes very big investors who have committed to our project, previous to our meeting.
Yes.
And so we will share these resources, and ACON got $6 billion from a medical city foundation, which is or fund, which has $1 trillion. Okay,
Wow.
U.S. dollars, and so that's how ACON was able
That's
to
in
finance.
Senegal, Africa, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And from what I understand, that fund is from China.
Wow.
So it's interesting that in China, that in Africa, the Chinese have this idea of joining forces with ACON, and perhaps that his currency, the A coin, can probably become even the number 2 currency of Africa.
Wow.
And that's probably some of the background thinking to this sponsorship, which is very interesting.
That icon, is that like a digital also like city?
Yes, it's the
Oh.
world's first crypto city.
Oh, I see.
And unless we get ahead of him, but I think that at this point that maybe ACON is ahead of us
Yeah.
for the world's first crypto city. But we can develop the world's first crypto city in Asia.
Okay.
And we're talking about the first Philippine city of science that we
Yes.
developed, and other subsequent
So we can
cities.
correlate that to the Avenue Square, because as we have discussed, we can put the City of Science inside the 79,000 hectares on top of the mountains, where this is really an advantage to a lot of leaders and members who are really working so hard to make it in a way that this is like a legacy of my parents. That we are advocating the laws. Sometimes there are people there in the society of the Philippines, especially the one who are pretty much creating so much negativities, and they try to stop you from doing of this kind of advocacy to continue the journey of what is really good for the common. This is a common good, but they don't appreciate that. But I just it's not I could care less. It's something that I pray to the Almighty God that those people might stop, like for actually preventing us from doing this, because spiritually speaking, a lot of people are trying to get things done no matter what it takes. But how are they going to put that in perspective of such like a legitimacy? Because as far as this Avenue Square is concerned, we're the only foundation that's actually dealing this as far as the City of Science to be connected. So I'm very happy today that we have discussed this, so much information be given to the public, and specifically to the persons who don't just believe and trust. I just ignore them in the first place.
Well, it's interesting. In 2008,
Yes.
when I met my partner, Mr. Vitali, in Zurich, Switzerland,
Okay.
I was staying at one of those shishi hotels right near the lake. And,
All right.
And,
So it's like a Chinese hotel.
and probably more expensive. So anyway, at that point, I abandoned the concept of doing tiny projects.
Okay.
And one of the things that you learn through time, and I've been 35 years in finance and worked for Wall Street and other firms. And so, what I can say is that large projects capture the imagination and solve the problems of governments and regions and whole groups of people and indigenous peoples. And,
All right.
And so,
The native ones.
right, and such large projects actually have a better chance of happening than something very so-called small and practical, like a dry cleaning store or something, and that if you're trying to convince investors that the dry cleaning store has a great profit margin, it's reliable, I've been doing it for 20 years, blah 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 blah, and the investors will be just they're not interested. And so instead, if you say, well, we have the biggest project in the Philippines,
Yes, that's true.
and we have the greatest imagination injected into it and innovations, and it's disruptive. That used to be a bad word, now it's a good word. Disruptive now means that you're going to break through a useless and archaic system and create a new system
Okay.
that is actually beneficial to people, and which they'll immediately adopt because it's good for them.
Yes.
So, it's the old thing of give the people what they want.
Yes.
So I'm excited by Avenue Square, and then our concept, new concept and proposal to put a City of Science inside, because we occupy about 23,000 hectares.
Yes.
As far as an urban and suburban footprint. And it can
We
be
can accommodate that.
right, and so this is a marvelous idea for us to develop this, or to co-develop this, and then also to make available to the foundation, decades of financial relationships and international finance and
For how many years?
structures.
For 25 years? Yes, I think for 25 years, right? You can do.
At least. So we have a cooperation agreement, which is not about the next 5 minutes, but it actually spans decades.
Yes.
And so during that time, we're going to be developing together all of the financial resources necessary. Yes. And all of those resources exist. They've been identified. We have negotiated in some cases already with the principals, and they have signed agreements with us. So the money is out there, is what I'm
Yes,
trying to
that's
say.
true.
But the imagination is right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like the imagination is some sort of like, I can correlate that or relate to the spirituality. Like this person actually asked me, Prince Altres, how are you going to construct the Avenue Square, 79,000 hectares, a majestic paradise in the Far East? And I said, well, if you trust God, by all means, it's not what you think that actually in the normal way of thinking. This is some sort of like in comparison to the Noah's Ark. If you think about Noah's Ark, nobody believed him that there would be like 40 days, 40 nights, like a big storm. So, but it did happen to his time. So this is just also in comparison to the Noah's Ark. And I do trust the essence of this formulation or construction is to correlate really the Avenue Square as well as the Project Galileo City of Science, and we are waiting to make these things happen in our generation or in the 21st century, because I think this is really possible. God is possible. Nothing is impossible with God. You just need to trust. If you do not trust God, or if you're like atheist or something, or we just respect you for that, right? But we are going to perform this, and this is not an easy job. This is like,
That's
to perform is obviously to correlate with people like with the good intentions, because there are a lot of people out there. They're trying to give you some bad reputations as if that they own the whole world. No, you cannot do that in the first place. We have been fighting for this for a longest period of time, and my message to you is pretty much just do positively and do not destroy people around, especially the name of the foundation, my name. And I would say this is some sort of like, all right, let us work together for, to have the standard of living in Article 2, Section 9. And pretty much we have the preamble that we, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of Almighty God, in order to build a just and humane society and establish a government that shall embody our ideals and aspirations, promote the common good, conserve and develop our patrimony, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of independence and democracy, under the rule of law, a regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace, and promulgate this Constitution. Actually, that is the 7 pillars of our preamble here in the Philippines, which actually connects to the Avenue Square, where a lot of people try to get their well-being, to have their peace of mind, because as we all go outside the society, it's too much competitions, too much of everything. It's not what they always value, the things that we have done to this kind of work. It's just a matter of like, for them it's just financial, but obviously we need that, both spiritual and material blessings, that we are really looking and longing to be part of this endeavor. So I'm really thankful and grateful to a lot of people, especially Mr. Christopher Wolf Crutcher, of giving us opportunity to be part of this worldwide, universal movement of the so-called the Project Galileo, as well as the City of Science, the Avenue Square for All Nations. And without any doubt, I believe and I trust Almighty God that it will happen soon enough. It's just a matter of like praying and meditating. So I am giving all the opportunity to a lot of people out there to also support us in this kind of project that we are doing, not only for financial but also for meditation and prayers, that someday that this COVID-19 will just go away, because this is really painful to everybody, because this bacteria is really getting into our way. So we need to pray hard, so this is going to be stopped as early as possible. And we thank you for that, Mr. Crutcher. I know you still have a lot of things to tell. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead and continue the journey of your information drive.
Oh, well, certainly.
The social awareness campaign, I would say, rather.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I really only had a few closing comments and observations.
Okay.
And so, for instance, to compare Acon City to what a city of science is, and even as a subunit of the Avenue Square development, that basically we have an urban core of 23,000 hectares. Now, Acon City is approximately 900 hectares. So it's actually much smaller than less than half the size of a city of science.
Okay.
We additionally incorporate either contiguously or in a separate location 129,000 hectares of a green agricultural belt.
All right.
And this is organic agriculture. Half of the land is set aside to feed the city. The other half is to export, either domestically or internationally. And we also will have manufacturing, so that we have value-added agricultural products. And there's another 129,000 hectares of natural preserve.
All right.
Which can be located in mountain areas or any area where there are endangered species, plants, and so that this is like a private national park, if you will, private national park. So altogether, the City of Science is 281,000 hectares,
Oh, wow.
including all of these elements.
Okay.
And so that's just something to bear in mind or in one's imagination, that these cities are sustainable, and we
Okay.
talked about sustainability, and then to marry together a City of Science together with the Avenue Square development, we would essentially take those 129,000 hectares of green agriculture belt and just essentially feed the entire city.
All right.
This would be our goal, for that particular green agriculture belt, is that we would look after the total population, even though we're kind of one district of that. So anyway, these are the differences. Akon City is remarkable, and it is interesting as the world's first crypto city. The fact that it's in Africa,
Yes.
which I think is marvelous.
Yeah.
It's
I wish I can go there too.
it's sort of Africa flexing its new muscles and saying, we are also here in the 21st century. We're not back in time somewhere.
Okay.
This is our future and also our present, which is very impressive.
Yes.
So I much admire Akon's achievement, but at the same time, I feel that we have thought through many other things that make our cities more sustainable, stronger. It has its own food supply. It has its own supply of renewable energy production.
Okay.
And we would, of course, also extend that to the entire Avenue Square development,
All right.
once we can review together the available technologies.
Yes.
And then the best ones can be chosen that are the most appropriate for the development.
All right.
So the fact that it's involving indigenous land in particular is also very interesting to us. We have a commitment to First Nations through things like our First Nations Stock Exchange to develop their economies and societies. So all of these things together are very much parallel. So I look forward to our work together.
Yes.
We can help each other in so many ways, Project Galileo and the Foundation, to achieve not just the immediate goals, but in the long term, a new and better quality of life that ends up as an example to all the rest of the Philippines and to the world.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Crutcher, for that really inspirational messages and educational information, I think. Social awareness. I think this is one of the campaigns that we would like to spread to the world. And obviously, do you have any last message to your leaders, to the followers all over the world, or whoever actually seeing this video or our episode 3, which is a lot of meaning?
All right. Well, I guess we should say take heart even during this pandemic. That your leadership is going to absolutely pursue the most effective course of action without interruption. That this, as inconvenient as all of the requirements are for each human being at this time on the earth, as inconvenient as that is, we still are able to use each day to great effect in the building of these organizations and institutions.
Well, great. Well said, Mr. Crutcher. But obviously, before we end up this episode, obviously, I would like to thank the Almighty God for everything and for this opportunity, as well as the internal leaders of our foundation, especially to Prince Jesse de Dios, Princess Asunza de Dios, Noble Flodoro de Salvador, Noble Amira Asilo de Salvador, Noble Leo de Salvador, Noble Norma de Salvador, Noble Sergio Rosario, Mike Anthony Ebuen, and obviously as well as the Supreme International Royalty Task Force of Baguio City and Region 1. And I hope that you have all the peace of mind in there with Noble Sunny Thailand, the Nobility Chief, Noble Isabel Cabinta Cuta, Noble Clarita Paa, Noble Fatima Vergara, Noble Aurora Lucero, Noble Wilson Garcia, Noble Mario Martinez, Noble Nila Choi, Noble Saidamen Magkakunog, Noble Thor, and all the leaders and members out there And I would like to request everybody just to have some calmness in your minds and your hearts, and everything has a solution. So this is something that we need to prevail, and we will be having our, of course, regional meeting in our national office, and I would like you to be part of that meeting here in our national office. And obviously in Region 1, we would like to, of course, say hello and thank Noble Cecilia Gagarin, Noble Yunora Kerubin, Noble Edita, and Noble Juanita Lazaro, and all of the people out there who are really helping, especially in this kind of crisis that we are facing, of praying and meditating for our safety. Thank you so much for that. It really helps a lot for this one. And Region 2, Princess Ariamsap de Dios, Noble Rosendo de Salvador, Noble Efren de Salvador, and Noble Noel Narciso de Salvador. Thank you so much. Agyamanak o agyaman kami in Ilocano. For me, it means to say that we have to be united as one, and because we're going to be successful someday. There are just processes that we are doing right now. So kindly bear with us for that. And Region 3, Princess Hatikon de Dios. Region 4 and Region 5 to be installed, because we're kind of looking for great leaders, the trustworthy leaders, and we're going to perform that, and we are also asking the aid of Almighty God for us to have those kind of leaders. In Region 6, our Princess Lani de Dios, she's our flag bearer, and I know we have been dealing a lot of sacrifices, and we have been actually fighting for this, and we are all the winners of this. And especially to your leaders, Princess Lani de Dios, Noble Joselia de Salvador, Noble Eva de Salvador, and all the leaders of Project Galileo. In behalf of Mr. Crutcher, I would like to thank all of you there, all the management of this Project Galileo, and all the negatives, the positive, just remain calm. Everything will actually be positive. It will happen. It's not a one night thing, It's like so many years for us to perform this. Just be patient enough, because this is not an ordinary movement, but this is some sort of like there is a legacy that we will be actually leaving this world. This is an advocacy that I have to tell you, everybody there in Region 6. Kindly pray for everything. Kindly pray for our safety, and we also praying for your safety as well. And in Region 7 to be installed, and Region 8 is Noble Tefa de Salvador. We would like to thank her for that. And of course, Region 9, Noble Archie Vale, Noble Lolita Alayon, Noble Richard Angus, Noble Arnold Nagal, Noble Arlene Kidet, Noble Leia Idanyo, Noble Argil Kidet. So thank you so much. Daghang salamat sa inyong tanan diha sa may Mindanao, especially in Pagadian City. In Region 10, in actually Davao, or in Region 11, in Noble Concepcion de Salvador. Thank you so much as well. Region 11 is Noble Juliet Eviota and her leaders. Mabuhay, daghang salamat. In Region 12 to be installed. Here in National Capital Region, Noble Pedro de Salvador, Noble Vivian de Salvador, Princess Salpa de Dios, and obviously we'd like to thank our Sir June Poligratis, Sir Hasan, Sir Jackie Chan, Sir Bruce, Sir Ramil, Sir Tony, Sir Benny, and all the PCA DG Police Community Affairs and Development Group, Director Police Brigadier General Joselito Mention Daniel, and all NGO Kabalikat ID presidents for actually understanding every time we have a meeting I'm not there. I apologize for that, because I have a lot of things right now. We are doing so much things for the Filipino people, for our organization, so kindly bear with me as well. To Mayor Jonathan Conghun of Subic Zambales, to Barangay Captain Manganbaka, Subic Zambales, Kapitan Viray, thank you so much for everything, and all the donors and supporters of this foundation, as well as the Project Galileo. We would like to see you again next time in our next episode. Probably we will never know, can be next week or the other week. Just keep on holding, just be positive, always train our minds to see the good in everything, because God will make a way where there seems to be no way. And I do trust Him, because God, He's always with us all the time. Once again, thank you so much in behalf of the Oneness TV. I would like to thank everybody who's watching right now in every aspect of life, in every walks of life. We are a member of Kapisanan ng Broadcaster ng Pilipinas. Once again, this is your Prince Altres Cabrera de Dios, the overall chairman president of this foundation, as well as our co-host or our project group chairman, Project Galileo, Mr. Christopher Wolf Crutcher. We would like to say goodbye and we'll see you soon. Stay safe and God bless us all. In God we trust. God bless us all now and forevermore. Amen. See you soon.